I'll go ahead and record.
Okay.
And for the sake of the recording, I guess go ahead and introduce yourself almost like a podcast and
Sure.
tell us what you're about.
So my name is Ariel Margolis. I'm outside of Boston, Massachusetts. I've 20 years experience in the education field, from teaching middle school and elementary school to running a middle school, and as well as starting up a school with my wife. We started one up about 4 years ago. And then my next chapter is moving into e-learning and instructional design. So I am leaving my full-time gig in the end of June at Hebrew College to focus on freelancing and contracting with companies that need onboarding and training courses done. So no grass grows under my feet.
And what was the structure of the school that you and your wife started? I remember you talked about that you really wanted that school for your kids.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit more about that.
Sure. So our kids' school and the school that I worked at for 15 years was closing due to low enrollment and a high deficit. And we loved the spirit and the culture of the school and the mission statement of the school, which was to engage each student at his or her own level and to create and foster a sense of community. And we wanted to basically continue that mission on. So we and 8 other families got together. And from, I would say, the time the school announced that it was going to close in the middle of May, this was of 2014, we worked nonstop to create a multi-age one-room classroom for students as young as kindergarten and as old as 5th grade. And we were able to hire teachers. We had curriculum. We got permission and licensed by the state. And we were ready to open right after Labor Day.
Yeah.
September. So
awesome. What was, looking back on that process, what do you wish you would have done differently? Or was there anything that you think you could have done differently to have a different outcome?
Sure. So I think, just to be for transparency's sake, after a year, my wife and I decided that the school wasn't a right fit for our kids, both primarily socially. It was just too small of a group. And so we left, and then the school unfortunately closed 3 years after it was created, simply because it just didn't have the numbers. So I just want to be transparent about that.
Yeah.
I think that in the first year, I think a lot of the issues that you want to, that you're describing and touting with how you're creating your school, I think we were lacking. There was a lot of, I think we could have used better communication. We could have had much more transparency. I think that the lines between friends and work blurred, and so there were relationships that got in the way, and it made for a very difficult, challenging opportunity. At the same time, the kids got a great academic experience. So we were very happy with that. We thought that the school was going to thrive and get new kids. And each year it did attract new families, but just not enough to make it sustainable.
Yeah. And sustainability is everything. I mean,
yes.
You can't survive. So
exactly.
What would be, when you think about the approach to education that is so common in the States, especially, because I don't know other education systems. You hear rumors and stuff like that, but what are some of the problems that you feel like that you observed and that you hear the most about?
It's a great question. I think that 99% of all the teachers in the United States want and meet their students. They want to meet their students' needs. They want to help their students grow. I think that for a variety of reasons, whether it's a lack of skill set, whether it's a lack of support from the administration, a lack of funding, it's difficult for teachers to meet those students' needs.
Yeah.
I think the other piece is it's not that students have become more complex. I think we've always had students who present themselves from a challenging perspective academically. I think the issue is that we need to incorporate more special ed training in every educator's background. I think it should be, almost every teacher should basically be a special educator. The strategies and skill sets that are learned really make a difference in meeting students' needs and understanding that it all comes down to just basic good teaching practices, but being able to take that risk and say, okay, I'm going to try, copying the notes for this particular student. And guess what? That may be helpful for other students in the class. And what can we then do with that time that we're not spending waiting for students to copy material off the boards?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that would be huge. One thing that you mentioned, something that you said made me realize that the pacing at which education goes and curriculum goes, even if we had a lot of that special ed training that you're talking about, I think would still be problematic because in my mind as a teacher, I'm not allowed to stop and think differently. I don't have the time to do that, which is not a criticism of your idea. It's a criticism of the system, that we need to make sure that teachers have permission to stop and put relationships first. I see all over Twitter, like, we need to put relationships first and stuff like that. And it sounds great, but I have to challenge myself even with my own kids. Like, what does that really look like to put a relationship first?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm constantly asking myself that. And I'll just say to that, I think the answer is treating education like a journey instead of a destination. When we treat something like a destination, like if you're taking your family on vacation, there's no time to stop along the way and enjoy time together. You're just like, okay, bathroom break and a drink. That's it. We got to go.
Right.
and so I think that's how special education students are treated now, is like, okay, we have to stop for you, but it has to take as little amount of time and resources as possible, and then we got to get going again. Instead of like, we don't know, we know we're going to end up in Florida, but it might take us a year to get there.
Right.
And maybe that should be more of our approach. You were waiting to say something. Go ahead.
No, that's okay. I mean, you are absolutely right that education should be looked at as a journey, not just for students, but also for teachers. Teachers are learning too. They're learning new skill sets. They're learning about who they are as individuals and how they impact students' lives. So they too are evolving. You ask a teacher that's been teaching for 20 years and to reflect on how they were when they first walked into the classroom, they're totally different. Just as students are. And you're totally on point with regard to building the relationship. That's really the number one priority of any type of teacher-student relationship. It's not about the content, it's not about the skill sets, it's about the relationship building. So Dave Burgess, who wrote the great book Teach Like a Pirate, I don't know if you're familiar with it.
I'm familiar with him. I haven't read that one, but I'm familiar with Dave.
Yeah, so he's awesome, and he describes how he literally spent the first week of classes building community and building relationships with the students. And people thought he was crazy. You're wasting a week's worth of class time to build these relationships. But the end result was that students were self-driven. They were focusing on what interests them. They also had goals and objectives. And they would come into class and get to work, and it would be the most efficient and effective classroom in the whole school because he took the time to get to know each and every student. And that's really, the great message that we want our teachers and frankly principals as well to really understand, who is in the building. Do they know every single student's name? Do they know the parents that come in, and how they can basically create this sense of community?
Yeah. And I think what is attractive to me about our model is it gives the students who come in being fully self-directed, where the students have all the tools they need to engage in learning, but they're not forced to do anything. So the students who are brand new to self-directed learning can come in and do what we call deschooling, which is getting ourselves out of that mindset of someone's going to schedule my day. And they go through that process and then other students can come in and they're ready to go from day one. They're like, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I know what I'm going to work on. And so I can go like that. So even something that's as powerful as what Dave Burgess was doing in his classroom, for some of those students who are ready to go and they're like ready to sort of comply, it can almost slow them down again. It's like, come on, teacher, like, I don't care about these kids. I'm ready to get to work. And some of the other kids are like, you give them 2 weeks and they're still like, yeah, but I still kind of want to hem-haw around. I don't know.
Right.
Going at their own pace. And so I love that idea. And I don't know if you've ever heard of this story before. It's not a real popular story, but the Sudbury schools call it the sleeping student. And
tell me more about it.
This student came in from public school. He had two two staff from the school following him to every class to make sure that he wasn't going to beat somebody up. This kid was a troublemaker. So they pull him out of school. They send him to one of the Sudbury schools. I can't remember which one it was. And he just found a couch and went to sleep. And he slept every day from the beginning of school to the end of school for an entire school year. And they let him. They're like, I don't know what this kid is going to do. Maybe he's just going to sleep again today. Like, we'll see. And so the whole year ends. Then he comes back. And they're like, I don't know what he's going to do because he slept all last year. Maybe he'll just sleep again. So he comes in and then he starts sleeping again. He sleeps for about a month. And then he gets up and takes a look around the school and starts getting into the computer lab and starts finding stuff. Then he requests that they get better equipment in there. And then all of a sudden he wants to be the chair of what they call the student meeting, which is basically the governing body of the school. Each student normally has an opportunity to be the chair for a certain amount of time. And so they were really skeptical because this guy he just slept a whole year.
Like Rip Van Winkle.
Should we really have his voice? So they let him do it. And they said he did just a fantastic job. And that's a very extreme case of deschooling where, this kid obviously had a lot of anger, pent up, and a lot of rebellion in him. And he just needed time to just do what he wanted to do. And when finally he realized, gosh, no one's going to make me do anything, I'm going to go find something to do.
Right.
And some Sudbury schools don't allow their students to sleep. Obviously this one did, but I find that very interesting of sort of taking personalized learning to its logical conclusion. And it's like, well, we can't really force kids to do anything, so we're not going to.
Right.
We're just going to make sure that they can't hurt each other, and they have to follow the rules. So I think something I'd like to share with you and maybe get some of your feedback on. I don't have this typed up in a document yet, but I have a few first steps for establishing our school. Would you be willing to look at that?
Absolutely.
So I have it on a whiteboard here. I'm going to point you over. This is kind of high level. Sorry, I had to take off my microphone here. So I started looking at it almost like a mountain. Can you see that okay?
I can indeed.
where the first thing I think we want to do, and I had a friend challenge me to say, look, you got to figure out who's interested in coming to your school. And so I started building kind of some tasks. So I'm trying to build the email list first. And we have a few schools in our area. The school model that's probably closest to ours in our area that's actually really popular is Montessori.
Mm-hmm.
Is Montessori popular out there?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I actually did some Google trending research. Montessori peaks quite a bit compared to homeschooling, private schooling, charter schools. I mean, it's extremely popular.
Yes.
So that'll be a good keyword for us to try to tap into. And I'll probably try to schedule some talks, maybe try to get to know the people who run these to see if I can come and talk to parents, because Montessori stops at around grade 2.
Okay.
So some parents might be looking for something that extends those ideas
Absolutely.
beyond grade 2. So kind of that's a starting point. And then I was thinking, once we get 50 names that are kind of willing to say, if this school was open today, I would enroll.
Mm-hmm.
And then we hire our school leader and we establish to be a private school. We have the school leader start hiring staff, file for our nonprofit, and then open the doors. Sounds simple, right?
Yeah.
I feel like the thing that is going to be the hardest is probably getting the first 30. And then once you get 30 that are interested, it might grow actually kind of rapidly. I'm not really sure. What are your thoughts on this? What are some holes that I'm missing? What would you be thinking about?
So first off, I think that you have a great skeleton in terms of the procedures and steps that need to be done. One thing to think about is not so much in terms of steps, but in terms of almost like a web. What areas can we work on simultaneously, and who in your close circle can tackle what? Do you have someone that has filed paperwork for a 501c3? Do you have someone that has hiring experience in regard to education? And coming up with a timeline, knowing, and working backwards. So if you know that August of 2019 is your opening date, so what needs to be true in order for the school to open? You need to have a space. You need to have staff. You need to have some form of administration in place. You need to also have students.
Yeah.
You can open up a school, but you don't have any students in it.
Or families. Yeah.
Or families.
Families who are ready.
What's the curriculum? How are you going to design the curriculum? Are you going to base it off your state standards? Are you going to go off and choose, your own curriculum? Are you going to follow, a combination? So that's, these are all, more complex questions that really John Dewey asked, in the beginning, like who's going to teach, what's going to be taught, how is it going to be taught, and why? What's your reason? So I think the market niche of focusing on Montessori school parents that really drink the Kool-Aid and really believe in the model, and that you want to basically expand that, take that Montessori approach and expand the multi-age student-directed learning into the older grades. I think that that's a great niche. I think doing some parlor meetings with those parents and saying, let's do a SWOT analysis. What are the strengths of going to this new school if we were to open it? What would the weaknesses be?
I think I've heard of SWOT before.
Yep. SWOT.
OT. Okay.
Yep.
Oh, this is a race. Oh, yeah.
That's okay.
Yeah. So what are the strengths, weaknesses?
Yep.
This is helpful. Thank you.
Sure.
And let me know at any point if you need to go.
Opportunities
Opportunities.
is O, and then threats.
Yeah. What could shut us down, basically?
What could shut you down? And I think certainly um, talking to those families, and talking to, what's great about social media today is that with LinkedIn and with Facebook, people are very willing to sacrifice and give their time, which is more valuable than money, in
Yeah.
terms of giving their feedback, their expertise. So there are principals who are more than happy to talk to you. There are teachers who are more than happy to say, yeah, you know what, I think that this type of curriculum would be great for your school.
Right.
And really getting really having the conversations going, and making sure that above all you create your mission statement. This is, we want to do this with this. We want to create a self-learning directed school for grades K to 12 with 50 families, or with by 2018. So that way, your mission statement explaining what self-directed learning is, it's not for everybody. There'll be parents, and there'll also be kids who say, this really isn't for me. I'm not ready for that. And that's okay.
Yeah.
I think that's okay. And
it's like the Matrix. Some people are not ready to be unplugged yet.
That's right. Some people are not ready to be unplugged. And I think that the legal side, setting up the business plan, setting up the 501c3, that takes a lot of time, but that can get started now. You can even find, if you don't have anybody within your network that can work on the 501c3, there's also attorney networks, that attorneys who are constantly doing pro bono work.
Yeah.
So, they've done this before. For them, it's not a big deal. But I think, as you said in the beginning of a conversation, the number one piece is the relationship. And it's not just between the kids and the teachers. It's between the founders of the school.
Yeah.
The founders of the school need to really understand and appreciate one another's strengths. There needs to be 100% transparency. There needs to be 100% buy-in. And, expect the unexpected. There may be times when, a founder may say, what, this really isn't for me. And to make an agreement that, I will support you, I will help you, but this isn't for me.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
That's good to know. And I've got connected with a new group. I've been connected with this group for a while. It's called Indianapolis Unschoolers. And unschooling is another term that we use to describe self-directed education. They're a little bit more on the fringes as far as they tend to be anti-schooling, hence the name unschooling. But they are trying to start a learning center here in Indy that's built on some of those principles. So I'm getting plugged into that group.
Great.
And who knows, maybe it'll be something where we all end up working on the same project, or maybe we're working on two corresponding projects at the same time, which either one would be helpful. So
yeah,
that's awesome.
I think also sitting with an accountant, or someone who is really savvy with finances to know, okay, what's my minimum number of students that I need?
Yeah.
In order to open. What's the price? We knew in the greater Boston area that most private private schools charge anywhere from $20,000 to $30,000 a year.
Yeah.
So our market niche was, we can charge half that because we're renting space. So we don't have not buying a building. So we don't have the overhead. We've got small numbers. So what needs to be true in order for us to pay the teachers. Now, I think in hindsight, we made a mistake. One of, it was between myself and another founder to say, we'll become the head of school. And I basically could not, there was basically the way the budget worked, like the head of school was not going to get a salary.
Okay.
So that was, I could not commit to that. She could, but it took a toll. When you're coming in, and even if you're not getting, you're seeing the fruits of your labor, but you also want to get a little carrot at the end of the week.
Yeah.
So I think that was a mistake. And being able to budget for that, I think, is important.
Yes.
So,
that sounds good.
Talking to a finance person, talking to a lawyer piece, let them be the ones that are more the concrete players.
Okay.
And you focus on building your dream and getting the buy-in and selling the dream to the prospective parents and families.
Yeah. That sounds good. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording there.